From the moment tanks first rolled onto the battlefield in 1916, they completely changed the way wars were fought. But by World War II, as each nation followed its own military doctrine, tanks had evolved into wildly different designs and philosophies. Countries even sent spies across borders, desperate to uncover the weaknesses of their opponents' armored forces, all to gain an edge on the battlefield. Yet, amid all these differences, one question still sparks debate among military experts today. Why are Russian tanks consistently shorter than their Western counterparts? Is it merely a design preference, or does it hide a dangerously clever strategy? Let's dive in and uncover the secrets behind this unusual choice. Just a quick glance is enough to notice one thing. Russian tanks are almost always shorter, by nearly half a meter, compared to Western designs. Take a look at the numbers. Britain's Challenger 2 stands at 2.49 meters tall. Germany's Leopard 2A5 reaches 2.64 meters. And the American M1A1 Abrams? About 2.44 meters. Meanwhile, Russia's T-90 sits at just 2 meters in height. For decades, Soviet, and later Russian, tanks have been known for one thing: a low, compact, yet astonishingly effective design. Back in the 1970s, the T-72 measured just 6.41 meters long, 3.46 meters wide, and 2.19 meters tall, earning its reputation as the ultimate short tank. In the 1980s, the T-72 evolved into the T-82. Its weapons and engine were upgraded, but its silhouette stayed just as small and low to the ground. Then came the 1990s. Russia introduced the T-90 to 7 meters long, 3.4 meters wide, and only 2 meters in height. By 1998, the T-90 was ranked among the top 10 tanks in the world. Yet even after later upgrades, its height remained just 2.22 meters. There are many reasons why Russian tanks have such low-profile designs. But first, we need to look at the contrasting design philosophies of Russia and the West to really see where the difference begins. The Soviet, and later Russian, approach was shaped by the idea of total war, where they expected massive, prolonged conflict and needed an army that could be produced in huge numbers. Their tanks had to be compact, with a low silhouette, thick armor but relatively lightweight, and above all, fast to manufacture, affordable, and easy to produce in staggering quantities. That philosophy once gave birth to the legendary T-34, affectionately nicknamed the Cockroach. The T-34 didn't excel in any single category, but it was mobile, durable, cheap, easy to repair, and incredibly simple to mass produce. If one was destroyed, Soviet factories could churn out replacements almost immediately. In many ways, this military doctrine and industrial mindset were key factors behind the Red Army's success in the final years of World War II, and they became the foundation for Russia's modern preference for tanks that are low-profile, compact, and relentlessly practical. In contrast to Russia's approach, European and American tanks are generally much larger and significantly heavier. Take Japan's Type 10, for example. It already weighs 48 tons, and most Western tanks fall comfortably in the 50 to 60-ton range. Their turrets are big and elongated because ammunition is stored in the rear for better crew safety. American tanks aren't as utilitarian as their Soviet counterparts, but in return, the crew is given top priority: spacious interiors, well-crafted layouts, and fully equipped systems, even if all of that comes at the cost of massive power consumption. But size comes with problems of its own: high production costs, slower manufacturing, more complicated maintenance, and poor adaptability to harsh or unforgiving battlefields. While the Soviet Union stayed firmly committed to building tanks that were small, low, and lightweight, Western designs throughout the second half of the 20th century kept getting bigger and heavier. A few exceptions, like the Leopard 1 or the AMX-30, weren't enough to change the overall trend. And that's why, even at first glance, Russian and Western tanks look fundamentally and unmistakably different. So why did the Soviet Union, and later Russia, stay committed to building low-profile tanks? In their view, a tank's survival depends on three core elements: protection, firepower, and mobility, and shrinking the vehicle's overall size was one of the most effective ways to reduce risk on the battlefield. Russian tanks are cheap, easy to mass produce, and above all, incredibly agile. Their low, light, compact hulls allow them to move effortlessly through difficult terrain and make them much harder targets to hit. The smaller the tank, the harder it is for the enemy to lock on. The primary battleground terrain for the Soviet Union, and later Russia, was the flat, open expanse of Eastern Europe, combined with its year-round, specialty, endless mud. Dust in the summer, autumn and spring turning roads into oceans of thick mud, and winter burying everything under heavy snow that slows down any vehicle. In these conditions, a low-profile tank becomes a massive advantage. Even if it gets stuck, its smaller silhouette makes it far harder for enemy scouts to detect from a distance. If the Soviet Union had chosen to build massive tanks like Nazi Germany did, they likely would have collapsed early in the war. The best example of this mistake was the Panzer VIII Maus, a 188-ton steel behemoth. Impressive on paper, yes, but utterly useless in reality. Far too heavy to cross bridges, extremely difficult to move across rivers, and so gigantic that it could be spotted from miles away like a mobile house. In the end, only 2 hulls were ever completed, and the entire program was abandoned. This contrast hasn't faded with time, it's still true today. Putin once even remarked that Russia deliberately avoids building too many major roads in its western regions, just to complicate any potential Western advance. And that's a real problem for modern heavyweights like the M1A1 Abrams. We're talking about 60 to 70 tons of pure steel, machines that absolutely depend on roads, bridges, and solid ground to even function properly. Put them on soft, muddy terrain and they struggle, get stuck, or break down with alarming ease. So if the US ever tried to push an armored column deep into Russian territory, those hulking vehicles might end up out of the fight long before a single shot is fired. The advantages of low-profile tanks are clear, but the drawbacks are just as significant. The biggest weakness is limited visibility and poor performance on rough terrain. And nothing illustrates this better than the Object 775. The lowest tank the Soviet Union ever built, introduced in 1964. Standing at only 1.74 meters tall, its flat turret made it incredibly hard to spot, but that came at a price: a very narrow field of view, and serious difficulty climbing slopes or navigating uneven ground. Its crew consisted of just 2 people, seated inside a cramped, sealed compartment in the middle of the turret. And instead of firing conventional shells, the main gun launched guided missiles loaded through an automatic system, which further reduced the already tight fighting space. Before later upgrades, storing ammunition inside the turret made the tank extremely vulnerable. A single indirect hit could detonate all 40 rounds inside and blow the entire turret sky high. This flaw became painfully obvious during conflicts like the First and Second Iraq Wars, where many T-72s suffered exactly that fate. To overcome these problems, Russia turned to 2 key solutions: redesigning the turret, moving away from the old hemispherical shape to a wider layout, giving the crew more room to operate; relocating the ammunition compartment, placing it either behind the turret or underneath it, separated from the crew. Tanks like the T-14 Armata use this approach, greatly improving survivability if the ammo ignites. Despite the challenges, the low-profile design proved so effective that it even inspired Sweden to build the Stridsvagn 103, the famous S-tank. Standing only about 1.9 meters tall and completely turretless. Its main gun was fixed to the hull. To aim, the gunner had to rotate the entire vehicle. And to elevate or depress the barrel, the tank relied on its suspension system. When firing, the S-tank almost looks like it's bouncing or nodding, a strangely graceful motion for a machine built for war. Despite its uniqueness, the S-tank couldn't fire on the move. It had to be positioned on relatively flat ground, and targeting objects that were too high or too low was challenging. It's a perfect example of a bold design that comes with significant trade-offs in tank history. And that brings us to the end of today's video. What do you think about low-profile tanks? Share your thoughts in the comments below.